Are you stuck in a contract to buy a house that you don't want to buy anymore? Stick around right after this and we'll tell you all the ways to get out of that contract. Welcome to Real Estate Divas. Today we are letting investors know all the ways that they can legally get out of a contract when they no longer want to buy that house. So first things off, Jer'Leigh is our broker, real estate contract expert.
Expert. I'm going to go expert.
So starting off, what's the number one way?
Well, I don't know if I'd go number one. If we're starting off and we're just looking at a contract, you got paragraph 1. Let's start with the first line. You have to have the correct name. It has to be the legal name. If you don't have the legal name, the buyer's legal name up there, and you don't do an amendment for name change, then they're not going to lend money to. They're not lending money to that person. They're lending money to, Randall, not Randy.
So is this for a seller finance contract, or is this, we're saying that buyer's name on the contract doesn't match the person who's taking out a mortgage?
Correct. That's what we're saying, but not a seller finance. We're just talking about a regular contract. Regular contract. Texas contract, where you put your buyer's name. Make sure, it sounds dumb, but make sure you're...
How about the seller's name? Because a lot of time I will see wholesalers, they just skip over that altogether because they're worried that maybe something's not recorded correctly. So they put seller of record. Does that work, or can you get out of that?
Seller of record, they're not getting a loan. So that, I believe you're going to have to do an amendment in order to go ahead and get that person on there. But because that's going to be a name change, it's not legally seller of record.
So technically, if you put in seller of record, you could walk away and get your earnest money back.
That's not the deal, because that could be a null and void contract, but it depends on whether or not the seller wants you roped into it, right? If the seller wants you roped into it, they're just, it's as simple as throwing an amendment out there. But basically, you want to make sure specifically that the buyer's name is right, because then the lender can say, well, I'm not loaning to that person, and then they didn't get financing.
And that does
make that you can walk away from a contract for not getting financing.
And get your earnest money back.
Yes.
But not your option money.
Correct.
All right.
Yep. So that's the first way. And then as we work our way down the contract, just that second portion where you got the legal description. You can get the address wrong. The actual address wrong. They'll do an amendment, and they'll most likely catch it at title, but it's the legal description. They say that it's the legal description that every legal document is going to be attached to, but the address is really what you give friends, families, whatever, to send you mail.
But the legal description is the hard thing that so many people get wrong anyways.
Yep.
Including some title companies.
Exactly. Well, we did that whole show going over and looking at your title policy and what to look out for. That was one of your number one things.
I know.
Is the address
Is the address correct? And is the legal description correct?
Yeah.
Because I have been involved with a sale that we couldn't complete, and I was wholesaling it, so I was a little upset. I didn't get my fee because the bank had foreclosed on the wrong piece of property.
Ah. There you go. What the heck? That's worse than going and doing the wrong roof on a house.
No kidding.
I love Jer'Leigh right there. She's like, well, screw them. Joke's on them. What do they know?
That's funny. That's not funny, but that's funny.
All right. So those first two ones they're kind of dumb mistakes.
Yeah, but that can mean that the buyer walks away.
So just to play devil's advocate here, is it a good idea for investors to maybe have some mistakes in those things if they want as like a back?
I'm not going to suggest or recommend that. But now that you know it's an out or a possible out, mistakes happen.
Mistakes happen.
you know. So there's that, I'm just putting it out there. But I'm not recommending, I'm not an attorney. I am not an attorney. I don't play one on TV.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm not recommending that you do that, but
My evil, twisted mind just went there.
I know. The other part is same page of the contract. You just scroll down to the bottom and it's undisclosed leases. So like if there's a mineral lease or if there's a water lease or you have a lease for an easement, anything like that, and it's not disclosed, then the buyer can walk away.
As they should be able to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, that kind of, does everybody know when they're selling a house if there are leases on their property? They should.
Typically, they do. What I find more often than not is that sellers don't always know, do I have my mineral rights? And most likely, if you have to ask, you do, because you didn't intentionally lease those or sell those off.
Well, that was a pretty hot thing 20
was.
years ago, that the mineral rights stay with seller.
Yep.
That, they're conveying the property, but they're keeping
The mineral rights.
Mm-hmm. And I saw that all over.
Yeah,
tons
now
of contracts.
that everybody realizes they're not going to make $1 million off their mineral rights, that's kind of subsided. So we don't see that quite as much, but you do have to be aware of those undisclosed leases, know what you got. The option fee. Obviously, this is built into our Texas contracts. It's meant for you to do your inspections and walk for any reason whatsoever. But there's a time limit on it. You put in there anywhere from 3 to 10 to 15, just depending on the property, whatever y'all agree on. And then within that time.
Well, and this is how investors typically get out. They try to get the longest option period possible, to make sure that either they know they're going to buy that piece of property or they're going to find somebody else to buy it from them.
Exactly.
In that
just
time period.
It buys them that time.
Sure.
So then you've got the option period. The other thing would be if you can't get insurance on the property. This would be you're already under contract and you find out that it was undisclosed, that it's been marked into a floodplain. And now maybe the insurance, maybe you still can get insurance, but now it's going to be substantially more. I did run into this on a contract before because they reassess those floodplains, right? Your 100-year floodplain, your 50-year, all of that. FEMA will go in and reassess this periodically, especially if there was flooding in that area. And so some people don't even realize, you may have a policy on your house that is not
and now
flood coverage, but now you're in that zone because they've reassessed it because there was flooding in your area, and now the next person has to get flood insurance. So, that's something to be aware of. Then also there's...
But you've had, because insurance is one of those last things you go after.
Last things.
So it might be you just need to go in and sign, but you have to have proof of insurance for your loan.
It's usually right there at that last week.
And
if you can't get insurance and you can't provide, then if you're getting a mortgage, it's different if you're a cash buyer, obviously. A lot of this goes away if you're a cash buyer. But if you're getting financed, then that mortgage company is not going to finance you without that insurance. So something to be aware of. Then also the roof. The roof is something that we brought up before whenever we were just talking about if the roof is uninsurable, then it's got to get fixed before closing. And some people walk for that.
The buyer can walk for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially if the seller says, well,
I'm not fixing it.
I can't do it.
And they can't get insurance, so they can't get financed, So it gets to be a kind of a sticky situation. But that's one of the ways you can get out. The next one would be the survey.
Yeah. So a lot of times it says, you've got, 3 different things to check for survey. It's either the seller has a copy of the survey, or the seller will pay for a new survey, or the buyer has to go get their own survey if they need one.
Exactly. And so obviously if I'm negotiating the contract, I'm trying to get, for the buyer, then I'm trying to get the seller to pay for everything. So, or to provide us a survey that is, that will, what's the word I'm looking for? That will transfer to the new buyer,
Sure.
right? Because sometimes your surveys change, so therefore they're not valid anymore. But the survey, you have a time period of which to deliver that, and that's one of those blanks you fill in.
But oftentimes it's, 5 days or something like
Yeah.
that, and it's still during the option period.
Many times it is, but that's why you need to be aware, because if you make it outside of the option period, then the buyer's agent or the buyer has just made it, they've really
Extended
created a bigger gap in that contract.
Okay, so let me get this straight. You've got an option period, and let's say it's 7 days.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 7 days. But they have to get you the survey by 5 days, and they missed that deadline. And let's say it doesn't come in until day 15. Are you saying that the buyer has then the option period just keeps going on until that's...
Well, it's not the option period. It's to object and walk away because of the survey. If the survey is what the survey is, then, it just gives you just one more little niche of a way out.
It's very
right?
important to get that survey in.
Yeah. And so, and also, I usually, if I'm writing up a contract, then I'm going to make that deadline 10 days or 14 days, because then it's outside of the option period, and you're just kind of buying a little bit more time here and there.
Well, it also is necessary, especially with as much real estate as being sold.
Mm-hmm.
Those surveys can take a while.
They can take a while.
I mean, there's no 24-hour survey company.
No.
So
no, between that and the appraisal these days, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, you're still looking at a minimum of a week, if not 2 weeks.
Yep.
To get a brand new survey done. So,
exactly.
I mean, you almost have to have 14 days there.
So, moving on.
HOAs.
HOAs can be an absolute pain. So when you're doing the HOA addendum and it's in an HOA, then they have a specific amount of time that you have to put in there that they can deliver those documents. And then those HOA documents, if you're like, oh, I wasn't aware that I had to put my trash in the alley and I don't like that. Or, anything that's on the HOA documents that you were unaware of specifically and you do not agree with.
What if those are recorded in public documents?
It does. Every HOA is different.
Mm-hmm.
If it was delivered and then you also signed the contract and you had those documents immediately, then you probably would not have that out.
Okay.
But most of the time, HOA docs do not come with the contract.
Okay.
They have to order those. It's a packet. You pay for it. There's also, you negotiate who pays for it. HOAs charge for everything. So,
Correct.
as you know.
Yeah, to get a cert, an
Yeah.
HOA cert. Yeah,
Yeah.
They're extremely expensive.
Exactly. And then there's the seller's disclosure. We were just talking about this. We did a whole show on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In especially as an investor, I don't move very often. So selling my own personal house, I don't know. When I get a seller's disclosure, I just address at the top and I basically just write a line and put NA.
Yep.
Because I don't know. I've never actually lived there. And so as a seller, you can get away with a lot. If you present that to a buyer, regardless of how much time, legally it has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done.
Even if it's ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, it has to be done. And then you deliver, if you don't deliver that seller's disclosure within a said time period, if it's not delivered with the contract and signed with the contract, then you put in, we want it delivered in, I always make it a little bit longer, 10 days. It's a little random. Throw in 10 days. If it's not delivered by then you can walk away. Then once it is actually delivered and you see it, you have 7 days to walk away for any reason. So you just bought yourself, like if you don't deliver that with contract, you're just giving
an extra
option period to the buyers. Mm-hmm. So, and a lot of realtors don't know that, and a lot of buyers don't know that. Or sellers, that's one of those things that you just don't even realize what the ramifications can be.
Right.
So you basically gave away a 14-day option period.
Wow.
Yeah.
And over something stupid.
Yeah, over something that's just, just needs some initials, fill it out.
To the best of your ability.
To the best of your ability, deliver it. Yeah. So a lot of agents and brokers have gotten more sticklers about that one, making sure it gets delivered with the contract. Moving on, the buyers can terminate for any reason. Oh, that was the seller's disclosure. Moving on.
Lead-based paint. So
Yes.
here's my question about this. Let's talk about, because you're selling my condo right now,
Yeah.
which was built prior to 1978, which is when the government disallowed any lead into paint. So if
Yep.
you have a property that's built pre-1978, you have to do a lead-based paint addendum.
Correct.
What if you completely removed all sheetrock and everything, and it's all brand new and new interior doors, wood, cabinets, all of that?
If you took it down to the studs, and everything that was ever painted was removed,
Right.
then yeah, you probably wouldn't have to do that, but it needs to be a freestanding. You're in a condo.
Yes. So
I
my
guarantee-
neighbors have
yeah.
lead. All right.
Exactly.
All right.
So,
but again, even if it was a freestanding, it's probably
it's
safest
still
and best.
safer to just go ahead. It's a piece of paper. You
It
know,
is.
I mean,
And
it's
it-
basically saying I have no knowledge of lead-based paint and passing that on.
And it's a couple initials, and you sign it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to
So,
sign so many of those.
to be careful and cover your butt, I would say just do it. Even if you took it down to the studs. If it's a 1950s home you took to the studs, tell them you took it to the studs. But just in case we missed a chip of paint in here somewhere, here's the lead-based paint addendum.
Okay.
But if you don't receive that, that's a way out.
That's
So-
a dumb one, too.
Yeah, that's a dumb one too. I mean, several of them are kind of dumb, but it really and truly, like, these are things you've got to pay attention to.
Well, and if you are working with an agent, you know, especially if you're a new investor, it's always smart to work with an agent or somebody who knows what they're doing so they can
Watch out for that.
watch out for
Well,
this.
and kind of cover your, like, are you kind of unsure? Is this your first, property that you're going to be either flipping or renting out, and you're afraid you might get cold feet? Well, then you want to take advantage of as many of these outs as possible. If you're selling it, you want to make sure that agent isn't giving that buyer so many outs, because the contract really allows the buyer many outs, whereas the seller has hardly any once they sign it. If the seller doesn't complete whenever you've agreed on repairs to the property and they're not completed by the due date or by closing,
Right.
you can walk away.
No, that's, I mean, you have to sign something.
Yeah,
Whether you go, okay, all right, well, we're going to do these repairs, but not those.
exactly. When you sign that amendment and say we're going to do all of these things, then you're required to, that's a contract.
Right.
And you'd be surprised how many times we get to closing and the sellers didn't do it. They're like, well, too bad, sign anyway. No, we don't have to. It's crazy. And then we have, if something this is a big one. So as agents and brokers, we're encouraged and basically told by TREC that you don't insert anything into paragraph 11. That is strictly for attorneys or specifically the seller putting what they want in there. But if anything...
This is that big blank square.
Yeah.
Where it's like, tell us other things, and I love putting stuff in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're allowed to. I'm only allowed to do it for my clients if they specifically, and really if you're a realtor, then you want to make sure that they sent you an email or a text verbalizing what they want in that paragraph. So you can't, because really and truly it's either the seller or it's an attorney. And if you ever get investigated, then TREC will want to see proof that you were told instead of just...
To put something in there.
Yeah.
But you also have to have initials of both the buyer and seller by that block, don't you? Like anything you write in there, it needs to be initialed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that's just one of those that in 11, the only thing that you're supposed to put in there in that paragraph is anything we don't have an addendum for already or an amendment for, then that's what goes in there.
Okay.
So
I love
anyway.
writing stuff in that little box.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm just like, buyer accepts property as is. You know, no repairs. You know, and I just,
all of that.
I put it all in there. I'm paying for nothing.
We're making that clear. Well, and then there's the financing, if financing falls through. And we've had a whole show on that, how buyers go out and they take out a big credit, open up a credit line, make a big purchase, buy that washer dryer set because it's on sale, sign for a new car.
What's the worst one you've ever seen?
I don't know. It's happened so much. It doesn't happen like it used to.
Right, I know. This was back before the crash, right? When it was just like, this is back before, I think this is probably 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
I'm flipping this house and my first buyer's financing fell through because they went out and bought a boat. A boat. Who does that? I'm like, we're buying a house this month. Let's buy a boat too.
Yeah. What the heck, people?
And then, they went back, at the last minute to check their credit report and make sure everything was still good. And lo and behold, their DTI was like blown out of the water.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have been allowed to buy the boat either, but whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it doesn't even take anything that big to blow it out of the water. It can literally be $1,400 for appliances that you're fine to get after it closes, but don't go out and pre-purchase before that loan before you sign.
I had
on
to
the
go buy
dotted
an
line.
entire house of furniture.
Yes.
And I've put it on, I got a line of credit for $100,000.
Right.
Let me do that before I buy the house.
Yeah. Then you won't have a house. You will not have a house.
So, yeah.
So the financing falls through, and it could be for job loss, health reasons, divorces. Those are other reasons why, financing would fall through.
But again, that's kind of unavoidable, for investors who are
paying cash. This does not apply.
No.
That alleviates a lot of outs, for investors.
I do know investors who try to claim, but I was always using hard money, which is the same as cash, and I put in the cash blank. But if you're trying to back out of it because, my hard money loan was denied, that doesn't work unless you put it in the financing part.
Yep. Well, and now title companies, because it's so, or at least here, most title companies, if you're using hard money, they're like, go ahead and put it in there like a loan. We got to process it the same way.
So you do the
third party.
You do the third party financing addendum, and you basically do an amendment to that contract, but you do it up front.
Yep.
Which is also probably a really good tip for investors out there who are looking for that extra out. They can go, hey, my hard money loan fell through. Sorry.
Yep. Well, and hey, there's tip of the day. Woo!
Okay.
Okay, so that being the tip of the day is for investors.
If you're a wholesaler or investor, once you get that property under contract, go back the next day and do an amendment saying, I'm getting a hard money loan on this.
Yeah, title's going to require a third-party financing addendum.
And just say that, because then the last minute, if you want to walk away. Now, you're still going to lose your option.
Definitely, if you even had an option. But yeah, you'll lose your option, and you'll get your earnest money back.
You will get your earnest money back.
If financing falls through, that's where you get your earnest money back.
That's an awesome tip for wholesalers and investors out there. Go back in and do the addendum so that you can get your earnest money back. So if you've got, $1,000 on the line on that property in earnest money, being able to go back at the very end because you couldn't sell it at what you put it under contract for.
So there you go, guys.
That's good. No, that's so good.
So, and then we have, like, every time you add an amendment or an addendum to a contract, then you're complicating it, right? There's going to be nuances to each one.
Sure.
And so every time you add one of these amendments, there's most likely at least one more out for the buyer.
Really?
Yeah. So just like whenever you add the contingency that we're buying this house it's contingent on selling mine, and I have a contract on it. So that's usually the only way that people accept a contingency is if they already have a contract on their house. Well, their financing fell through, so they can't buy, if the person that's trying to buy that house falls through, well, now the contingency created a gap so that I can get out because now this person's not buying my house. and I can't buy your house unless this person buys my house.
So, when we're saying get out of this,
Yes.
will they get their earnest money back in that
Yes,
case?
because they signed the contingency.
Okay.
I mean, unless it's written in the contract that if it falls through because of contingent, I mean, because there are fillable spaces in the contract, so you can manipulate it if you know what you're looking for. So as a seller, if you know you're going to accept this
Contingent contract, but your earnest money goes hard.
exactly, so you write that into the contract so that you get to at least keep that.
But if that's not written in there, they accept a contingency contract, that falls through.
Correct.
The buyer gets to walk and gets their earnest money back.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, buyers can walk, but it is understood that, they might be giving up some cash to do so.
Exactly. You'll be giving up. Well, and really, ultimately, you can walk at any time, but you're going to leave yourself wide open to losing that earnest money, whatever money you put into put with title or wherever. Right. Any inspections, you're going to lose all of that, and then you might also open yourself up to lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. So this is specifically to walk away, to avoid lawsuits, and even possibly get your earnest money back.
Yeah, all of these are specifically for those things. Like, we're trying to find you the way to back out of that thing and still keep your cash.
So to keep save face.
Yes.
And to be not culpable.
Exactly. Nobody wants any more suits.
Right.
But yeah, so there is, 16, 20 different ways to get out of.
I love that little financing nugget for wholesalers.
Well, I mean, and then like I said, now they're requiring them. Whenever I'm submitting a contract, whether it's for myself or for somebody else that's an investor, and they have hard money lending, or you're dealing with hard money, I don't put the finance, when I'm submitting the first contract, I never put it in there. It's in there as cash, because most realtors that have it listed don't understand that hard money works the same as cash. And so they see that financing, and then they see where somebody else put cash, and so they're going to take that cash offer.
Right.
And so you do the cash offer, and then you're like, hey, title's going to require this.
Because it's hard money.
Because it's hard money. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, we hope you all have loved these little tidbits. Please like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and
Facebook, and
that's it.
YouTube.
I'm not on YouTube, but I'm not on Twitter.
I am, but I don't do much there. Anyway, all right. Thanks for joining us. Let us know if y'all have any questions. And I'm Jer'Leigh Thompson with Texel Real Estate and Real Estate Reformation.
And I'm Kristen Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage Investments. Send me your owner finance loans if you're looking to sell one.
Bye, you guys.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.